Let's go ahead and talk about passwords. So passwords, everyone here has, how many of you have a password or have had to enter a password in recently? Or, we all have one. Let's face it. If you have an online account, you have a password. Passwords are everywhere. We use them every day with almost everything we do online, which actually becomes a big problem. So it's estimated that most web users have about 25 separate accounts. So we're talking email, social media, news websites, whatever it may be. But that they only use about 6 passwords to protect them, right? And personally, having studied computer security for the past couple years, I think that's a really, really generous estimate to say 6. Because let's face it, how many of us want to remember 6 different passwords? And even worse, you're like, okay, I remember my password was, happy birthday Bill. And then I had another one that was like, I love cats. But which one did I use for Facebook? So not only remembering the password, but which site you've used it with gets really difficult. So Business Insider estimates that 90% of passwords are vulnerable to hacking. Now that can be either because they're a well-known password or just really weak. And separate study estimates that 99.8% of users use the same 10,000 passwords, which means that 99.8% of users have well-known passwords. So we'll go ahead and just look at this graph. This is the same one with the 99%. 40% of all passwords are on the top 100 lists, right? 71% are in the top 500. So where this is from Mark Burnett. He's a computer analyst. He got this data from looking at password breaches. So LinkedIn had a password breach recently. Adobe had a password breach recently. I don't know how many of you have heard of RockU. RockU was a website. Well, they were services to websites. They did not protect their passwords. Their passwords got breached, and they were in plain text. Anybody could read them. And so that had over millions of passwords that were all of a sudden available to hackers. And through other breaches, they've been able to compile data and say, wow, some people have the same password across the board. Monkey is actually one of the top 10 in almost all those breaches. I don't know what's so great about monkeys. So what does all this mean? Well, if we're using the same or similar passwords on all of our sites, that makes it really, really easy for a hacker, once he gets your information, or even wants to try and get your information, to access all of your accounts. So if you use the same username, even a similar username, which let's face it, we all probably use the same email address when we're logging into sites, and the same password, it's really easy for them to just go in and try these different popular sites and gain access to whatever we're storing. All of our information, social media, email, banking. So what do we do about it, though? We're not going to remember 25 separate passwords, let alone which sites they go to, right? So there's a couple solutions. Password managers, probably the best solution out there right now. We'll talk about what those are. There is a way to create strong, unique passwords or even strong, unique passphrases that you can remember. This isn't the best way because that still means that you have to remember it. You might write it down. You might tell someone else. Something might happen. So how many of you here know what a password manager is? A few of you. How many of you use a password manager? All right, good job. Okay, so password manager, some of the popular ones, you have LastPass, OnePass, Dashlane. In fact, I have one on my computer, so let me show you. So right up here in this little corner, if you can see, this is LastPass. So a password manager is an application, it's even a browser extension, that stores your passwords securely, okay? They are secure if you store them here. And what it does is, I'll even show you, maybe. Here we go. Yeah, I know. Let's see. So if we go here, you can see my usernames, and this stores my passwords. So if I go to a website that I need to log in, it will actually pull up and say, hey, I recognize this website. I know that you stored a username and password for this. Do you want me to enter it in for you? It doesn't actually do all that. It just kind of like has a button there, and if you click it, it'll populate it. The other great thing about this is it will generate strong passwords for you, right? So when you go to a website, you're signing up, you say, I need a new password, I want to make sure it's strong, no one can guess it. You let the password manager automatically create a password, it will save that password, and it's a strong password. Hard to guess, in fact, impossible to guess, because they use random characters, numbers, special characters. And now you have your username, your completely distinct, unique password for that site that's hard to crack if a hacker ever got hold of it, and you're good to go. Okay, and this will do it for all sites. Usability sometimes does get a little hard because usually you have to pay if you want a mobile version, or if you're on a separate device and you're like, oh, I can't remember. The nice thing is you can just go to lastpass.com, log in, and you can just click on one of your accounts and it'll actually open that up in a new tab or a new browser, and you'll automatically be logged in. Do we have any questions about password browsers? Or managers, sorry. No. Yes? Do you pay for this? Most password managers have free services. I don't pay for mine. Really the only thing that you pay for with LastPass is for the mobile app, but I can just browse to lastpass.com in my browser on my phone and get to a site that way if I don't know the password. So LastPass, I think, is about $17 a year though. So it's really not expensive at all. And we do recommend having a password manager.
Do you mind demoing this on our site, just how to get to the tutorial for
Yeah, so let's look on, so this is our site for those of you who haven't seen it yet. It's very pretty, as you can tell. So if we go down here to passwords, we'll go to how do I protect myself? And we actually have some really, really great tutorials on password managers. So we used LastPass as an example just because LastPass has some great tutorials about how to use it, why to use it, how to set it up, how to, if you've already have passwords on a website, how to make sure that they are in LastPass, things like that. But there are plenty out there, and we recommend that you go and find the one that you like best. So you can see there's a whole list right here of password managers. Now the one thing about a password manager is you still have to have a password, right? Because when you log on to the password manager, you're going to have a username and a password. So the next thing you need to make sure you do is have a strong password for your password manager. So what do you think makes a strong password? And I really do want you guys to chime in. What makes a good password? Yes, in the back. Something you'll remember. Good.
Uniqueness.
Unique, yeah. Any other suggestions?
Minimum of 10 digits, upper and lower case, and symbols.
Very good, yep. That was what you were going to say. Okay. Strangeness. Yeah, so those are all it. But now you're all thinking like, well, I have to remember it. Did I not click on this? It's waiting, okay. Have to remember it. It's got to be unique. It's got to be at least, depending on who you ask, 8, 10, 12 characters long, upper, lower case with numbers and special characters. How am I going to do that? So here on cyberiq.org, and we're not going to run through it too quick, but it actually walks you through how to create a strong, unique password. There's a whole example, and the really nice thing is there are resources out there to test how good your password is, right? Now, most of these things, so the one we used is called Hack the Password, right? This is not, the Bible. This is not, it says it, so that's what it is. Okay, but it is a really good indicator of how strong it is. So we can enter in monkey. Let's see how strong monkey is. Great, it would take 0 seconds for a hacker to crack your password if it's monkey. If it's monkey, please go home and change it right now. So let's put in something a little more secure, like, that's right, so MONK3Y exclamation, oh, that's an E, exclamation point. So even that, it says 11,000 years. Yeah, it could, probably not, because just the way the tools work, it'll probably go a little faster than that. But as you can see, just adding in, even though it's less than 8 characters, just adding those in made it exponentially harder to crack. Now, because monkey's a well-known password, and this is something that the site doesn't take into account, part of the thing that the tools that hackers use when they're trying to guess passwords is it'll actually switch out well-known letters for numbers. So the fact that O is a 0 and E is a 3, that's something it would try, which is why I said probably not 11,000 years, but still, good indicator. So when you're creating a password, feel free, and probably a good idea to go to one of these sites and just test it out and say, how good is this password?